وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يروي الإمام مسلم في صحيحه عن عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: لا يدخل الجنة من كان في قلبه مثقال ذرة من كبر. قال رجل: إن الرجل يحب أن يكون ثوبه حسنا ونعله حسنة. قال: إن الله جميل يحب الجمال. إن الله جميل يحب الجمال. الكبر بطر الحق وغمط الناس. Tonight's hadith is from the collection of Imam Muslim, authentic chain of narration, narrated to us by Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. He said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and this is going back to our theme of the heart, focusing on the state of the heart, because the heart is what drives us, what drives our actions, what drives our thinking, our behavior, and ultimately our destiny in dunya and akhirah. And so the Prophet ﷺ said, nobody who has an atom's weight worth of arrogance in their heart will enter Jannah. An atom's weight of nobody who has an atom's weight worth of arrogance in their heart will enter Jannah. And so a man asked the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, what if a person has nice clothes and nice shoes? And the Prophet ﷺ responded and he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beautiful and He loves beauty. Arrogance is the rejection of truth and putting people down or looking down on people. So quick reflection inshallah, that this hadith makes it very clear. Arrogance, the definition of arrogance, has nothing really to do with the outside. We are allowed to look nice. We are allowed to have nice things and to display the ni'am and enjoy the ni'am that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. Actually, that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Arrogance has to do with the attitude of the heart. Arrogance has to do, it's a disease of the heart. It's a sin of the heart. And what makes it really dangerous, unlike the sins that we see done by our limbs, our eyes, our ears, our hands, our feet, things that we physically do and people see and we see for ourselves, the diseases of the heart are unseen. So somebody can go their entire life thinking they're okay, but they have diseases in their heart that will prevent them from entering Jannah. And because they're unseen and hard to, you can't detect them, Allah Prophet gave us ways to identify if we have these diseases, but because they can go unnoticed, they're a problem. And not only that, but even very small amounts of them. No Jannah. Absolutely no Jannah. If we have these things in our hearts. And so the Prophet ﷺ defined it for us. He told us ﷺ what to look for to evaluate our hearts if we have this problematic disease that will prevent us from going into Jannah. And that's two things. The first thing he said ﷺ is the rejection of truth. That somebody is too stubborn or has too much pride to accept truth. And when somebody does that, they see themselves, even if they may not claim it, they see themselves above the truth. That's why this is a sign of arrogance. Somebody who doesn't accept it, saying, I'm beyond this. I'm bigger than this. I don't need to abide by this. And there are many examples. An example, and we should ask ourselves these questions. When we make a mistake, do we admit we are wrong? Does somebody admit they are wrong, they're mistaken when they realize that this is a mistake or a problem? Or do they even justify their actions, even though they are wrong? Examples include many. I was harsh with the kids because I had a really rough day at work. I'm too stressed out. I'm tired. Or I missed prayer. I was just too busy. Or this is just a white lie. Or my favorite one, everybody does it, why can't I do it? There's many examples, for the youth, right? Copying assignments, everybody does it, right? Or pirating movies, everybody does it. Or for the older ones, older people, right? Breaking the traffic laws, or littering, justifying the wrong, not admitting that it's wrong and stopping. If we say, it's wrong and we keep doing it, our actions are saying otherwise. We may believe that we admit this is wrong, but if we keep doing it, we really see ourselves above the law, right? And so above the truth. another sign that somebody rejects the truth is that they justify or defend people who are wrong, their loved ones, their children, right? Or when they're in an argument or a debate, they don't accept the truth coming from somebody else but themselves. And so they will debate till the cows come home, as they say. And they will not accept. Their whole point of the debate is to enforce their opinion. They're not debating, they're not arguing to really identify the truth and bring it out so they can accept it. Right? Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah, said that, I take the opinion that it's right and I could be wrong, and that the others are wrong but they could be right. That's how you enter discussions. You don't enter saying, I'm going to enforce my will. That's a sign of arrogance. So that's number one. The Prophet ﷺ described this as a sign of arrogance in the heart that would prevent you from entering Jannah. The second one is looking down on people. Looking down on people. Looking at what I have versus what they have. I've got status, I've got position, whether it's at work or the community. I've got education, I've got credentials. And you may not say it, but the way you look at people, oh, this person isn't educated. How would they know? Or this person, doesn't have, hasn't gone through these experiences that I have. How would they know? Right? Looking down on people, it's a problem. And the challenge is also when especially for the youth and people that work for Islam. When somebody, for example, you work in the masjid, you serve 24/7, and somebody comes who you hardly see, and they could criticize some of the things in the masjid. And people often say, who are they to tell me what to do? I'm here 24/7, they're not. I'm busy and they're not. Who are they to tell me? That's a sign, that's a problem in the hearts to think that, because you're putting people down and you're elevating yourself just because you're doing something. Or when you see somebody doing something wrong, and you say, and you start, feeling self-righteous, and you start feeling superior religiously, and you think, look at what they're doing. These are all signs of this arrogance. So to wrap up, inshallah ta'ala, how do we overcome these, or how do we make sure that we cleanse our hearts for these things? So when it comes to rejecting the truth, think to yourself, and this is obviously advice by our scholars, and it's not limited to this, there's obviously a lot more on this subject, but one thing to say to yourself is, I want to have the mindset of always improving. So if I'm corrected, if somebody identifies that I'm making a mistake, I will accept it because this is a learning opportunity and an opportunity for me to be better. Everybody makes mistakes. I'm one of these people. Everybody makes these mistakes and I'm one of them. But if somebody identifies the truth for me, that I see it and they bring it to me, I will accept it because I always want to be better. And the person who lowers themselves in dunya for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will elevate in akhirah. Because at the end of the day, your status in dunya is temporary. But your status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is everlasting. So think to yourself, I want my status, I don't really care about how people look at me, I want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to look at me favorably. My status with Him subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. And so what do? I accept criticism, I accept when people point out my mistakes because I want to be better. And this is one of many advices, inshallah, for the first part of rejecting the truth so that we don't reject it. And then the second part of looking down on people. At the end of the day, what we've got, whether it's wealth, whether it's status, whether it's knowledge, whether it's activism in the masjid or for the community, what we have is because it's a gift by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to us. This is not because we are special. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted us with these blessings to have the opportunity to do khair, or to have a voice in the community, or to have some influence, or any of the blessings that we could have. It's because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not because of ourselves. And so how do we then think, when you take that, how do you look down on people? You don't. You realize these are gifts, and so I need to be grateful to Allah, not feel superior to others. This is a blessing to Allah, and if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed, He could have very easily changed roles. He could have easily changed roles. I could have been the one that is doing the visible sin, and the person that's doing it could have been in my situation, attending salawat in the masjid and fasting and so on, very easily. And this is why we say the dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us in the Quran, Alhamdulillah alladhi hadana lihada, wa ma kunna linahtadiya lawla an hadana Allah. That Alhamdulillah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all praises to Allah who guided us to this. And we wouldn't have been guided without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's because of him. And always humble yourself. And think, if I look down on someone, perhaps this person's sin, it's bad, but perhaps they're closer to Allah because my sin that's hidden, the arrogance, is worse. And that person is closer to Allah than I am. And so we always humble ourselves before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and before people, all in the effort to get rid of this arrogance in our hearts so that we can enter Jannah bi'idhnillah ta'ala. I hope that was beneficial. يروي الإمام مسلم في صحيحه عن عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يدخل الجنة من كان في قلبه مثقال ذرة من كبر قال رجل إن الرجل يحب أن يكون ثوبه حسنا ونعله حسن قال إن الله جميل يحب الجمال الكبر بطر الحق وغمط الناس. صدق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك